All right, you guys, today we are going to do the investment project, right? And we're introducing our unit on exponential functions and logarithms. And as with all of our projects, right, there are three things that we do, right? What is the first thing that we do? We get information, right? In a math class, we tend to call that what? Data, right? The second thing we do is what, Ricky?
Build a mathematical model.
Build a mathematical model. In math class, we tend to call that a what? An equation, and then we use that information to do what? Predict the future, right? So first thing we're going to do, what we are doing is we are picking a way that you would like to invest your money. So we're imagining that we have $10,000 that maybe we inherited, maybe we earned. It doesn't matter. We've got $10,000 to work with here, right? And we are deciding how do we want to invest that $10,000. Now what you guys did when you went home last night is you thought about this, you talked to your family, you had four options, right? One was to invest in small companies, one was to invest in stocks of large companies, right? One was to invest in bonds, which historically is thought to be kind of like a safer investment with less of a potential upside, right? And then the other option was mixed funds, which you kind of have a mix of stocks and bonds. So the first thing that we're going to do, right? You have selected your type of investment, right? Now, as you know, the stock market, right, tends to be, some say risky, right? I mean, you could choose to invest in a particular stock, and it could make tons and tons of money, or what else could happen? Yeah, it could do the opposite. It could end up losing money, right? So there is some risk, right? So what we did, you guys are on your website, the tinyurl.com, Asset Investments. It's the Vanguard, which is just an investment site, right? And we are only going to select companies with 10 years of history, 10 years averages, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to have our draft, right, where we randomly select out of those companies which one you actually invested in, right? So the purpose of this discussion, Ricky, maybe you got a company perhaps that had like 9.52% gains over the past 10 years, which is fantastic, right? And Susie, maybe you had a company, a stock that had only like a 5.4% gain or something like that, which wouldn't be quite as good, right? But so for the purpose of this, right, estimate your annual gains. I'm just going to kind of make up a fund. I'm just going to say I am investing in U.S. Super Stock, which of course is a made-up stock that I just came up with right now, right? And we are going to assume that I get 7.31% gains. Now the thing is, nobody does math in percents, as we've talked about before. You always do math as decimals, and 7.31% as a decimal would be what? 0.0731, right? We are making some assumptions, and we're making big assumptions. We're going to make the assumption that the 10-year average, which was 7.31%, right, that we are going to continue that gain as long as we have our money invested, right? That we're going to continue that gain for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. What about you, Tricia? When do you think you'll retire? 70. Okay, 70. Most people say around 70, right? How old are you now? 60. Okay, so we're talking you have over 50 years, right, for this money to grow. Now, I know it probably will not grow at 7.31% the entire time. There'll be some ups and there'll be some downs. But for the purpose of this project, we are going to assume that your stock will grow 7.31% the entire time. So that is the assumption we're making as we're writing our equation, right? So for this equation, right, we're going to have y, which is going to be the money, or I should say the value of your investment, right? Okay. All right. How much money did we say we were starting with? Do you guys remember? $10,000, right? You have $10,000 to play with, right? So that $10,000, that is your starting, or your initial investment, I should say, right? All right. Now here's the thing. If you're getting an increase of 7.31%, right? Right, 7.31%, right? And you're starting with 100%. You're starting with all of your money, right? So 100 and 7%, right? What is 107.31% as a decimal? That is exactly right. And so just so we're clear what that means, right? That means every year you are going to have 7% more money than you had the year before. Every year you are multiplying by 1.0731, right, representing that annual increase of 7.31%. Now, how do we show repeated multiplication in math? When you are investing year in and year out, right, how do we show repeated multiplication in math? We show it with exponents, right? So x, this is the number of years, right? So we have our equation, right? The rest is easy. Once we have our equation, which we do, you got your initial $10,000. You've got your multiplier 1.0731, which of course will be different for all you guys, right? And then you have x, which represents, your exponent represents the number of what? The number of years that your money is being invested. Once you have this, creating a data table is easy, right? Once you have your data table, making a graph is easy. Step 6 is a little tricky, right? Because you have to solve an equation, right? You are going to have to say, well, when will this be worth exactly $50,000, right? And as you guys know, what we'll do is we're just going to plug in 50,000 for y, right? And you guys are going to have to use logarithms to solve for the exponent, right? But we've done that. We'll be doing that a lot throughout this unit, so you'll be very, very good when that time comes, right? And then part 2, we're going to do the same thing for a portfolio of 3 funds. Now, typically, I don't know if you guys talked to your parents. I'm sure you did over the weekend. Right? Most people don't just invest in one fund. Typically, what happens is, you invest in a few different things, right? Some might do really well. Some might not do as bad. Or some might not do as well, right? But that's okay. That's kind of what they call diversifying your portfolio. In other words, investing in a few different types of funds. So that will be part 2, right? And then part 3, we're going to do the same thing with a polynomial where you're investing, in a few different years, different amounts of money. And we'll talk about that when the time comes. All right. But anyway, right, that concludes what we're doing. Do you guys have any final questions? All right, so we're going to get our data, which is just going to be, we're going to choose our funds that we're investing in, right? We're going to create our equation. We're going to make our data table. We're going to create our graph, right? And then we're going to figure out when this investment will be exactly worth $50,000, and we're going to do that. We're going to do that for a few different scenarios. All right, you guys. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to get on those computers. We're going to choose our funds. We're going to have a good time. And remember, there's no better way to keep it real than with real-world algebra.